trying and taking advantage of what
you know what I'm gonna do, because you don't ever give me a face shake. You know that? So I'm gonna let you talk to Victor Ortiz, all right? I'm through. They put somebody else up and give me an interview.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Heard him. You never give me a fair shake. HBO needs to fire you. You don't know shit about boxing. You ain't shit. You not shit.
I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
You won't do shit if you not.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT. I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. There, I had to that might be one of my favorite moments from HBO boxing when Floyd Mayweather tells Larry Merchant, you know shit about boxing. HBO needs to fire you, and Larry Merchant eloquently responds by saying, "If I was 50 years younger, I would kick your ass." That was the funniest that was one of the funniest moments of not just HBO but boxing in general to me. But last video here, we're gonna move on. HBO has decided to leave the boxing game, and you know I wanted to use this video. This will kind of be a two-parter. The first part will be, what does it mean for some of the network's marquee fighters? And by marquee fighters, I'm talking about guys like Triple G, guys like Canelo, guys like Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, guys like that. What does it mean for those guys? How will those guys function? What network should they go to? Things like that. And then we'll also get into Peter Nelson and just what he says, and we'll read into that a little bit. So let's start off with what does this mean for some of the network's preeminent fighters? Some of the network's top fighters like Triple G, Canelo, Roman Gonzalez, Sergey Kovalev, guys like that. Now, we do know that Kovalev, his rematch against Eliezer Alvarez, that is slated to be taking place on ESPN sometime next year. I can't remember the date right now. Don't quote me. I've been out the loop. But I know that'll be on ESPN. Then you have Triple G and Canelo, who just fought, and they're both of them are free agents now. So from the Canelo standpoint, you're probably thinking, well, Oscar De La Hoya has a relationship with ESPN. Maybe they can finesse that relationship with ESPN and get Canelo on ESPN, and that would be great. I think from a visibility standpoint, if you're trying to really make Canelo an even bigger cash cow and maximize just who he is from a monetary standpoint, you go that route. I think they could put on some great fights, whether it be with Lemieux or Saunders or whoever. You go that route. Canelo could put on his own pay-per-views, They have that route. There's a lot of ways Golden Boy can go about it. As for Golovkin, he's a little older. He doesn't have that many fights left in him. He's not as big of a draw by himself as Canelo. As good as he is, he's not as big of a draw. So I think, for me personally, and this is just my opinion, because I don't think it'd be smart to work with a Oscar De La Hoya because of him being with Canelo. There's gonna be partiality there, obviously. It makes no sense. Well, I don't want to say it makes no sense, but he could sign with Al Heyman for sure. That would make sense. I think he would definitely get paid really well, and maybe you might get a Charlo fight, but then Al Heyman sometimes he marinates things, so he might not get the fight when he wants it with Charlo. So that might not make the most sense for him. So really, I'll be honest with you, I think the best move he can make, it's not a surprise that I'm saying this, I think the best thing he could do is sign with Eddie Hearn and DAZN and that platform, because, and I'm going to tell you why, because Eddie has shown throughout his entire boxing track record that he will work with any promoter. He's shown that. His track record has shown that. So that's one. Two, boxing promoters, it's a game of power brokers and politics and things like that. And you need to have guys who have influence, guys who are a little bit snake-like, and Eddie Hearn is a bit snake-like. He can, sell water to a whale. Okay, you got to have a guy like that in your corner. Golovkin has had that in his corner in the form of Tom Loeffler. No disrespect to Tom Loeffler, seems like a nice guy, but Tom Loeffler has gotten Golovkin. I believe Tom Loeffler is as a big of a reason for Golovkin losing as, Tom Loeffler conceding to all of Canelo's demands put Golovkin in a bad situation. That's just the reality of it. I think a guy like Hearn will look after Golovkin a lot more, and and the thing is, they already have a pre-existing working relationship because they worked with each other for the Kell Brook fight. So he's worked with Golovkin in Team Triple G before, and Abel Sanchez and K2. So that's a little bit more of a smoother transition. So I think that's a good move for him. He should go that route. As for Roman Gonzalez, that one is interesting to me. I think Hearn will be a good move as well because if you look at Al Heyman, Al Heyman don't really have no like flyweight fighters like that, so that's not gonna work really well for him. De La Hoya might do well because maybe you could pair him on a Canelo undercard or something like that, but I don't think De La Hoya has never really been able to prove himself as promoting smaller fighters. So once again, I mean, maybe Aram, but Aram's priority is really going to be Lomachenko, Crawford, and those guys, as it should be. And Roman Gonzalez kind of at the end of his career. But see with Hearn, I think he should go with Hearn as well because if you were to sign with Hearn, Hearn already has a big fight he can get Gonzalez, which is the Kalia 5 fight, which is something that's been talked about on this channel and in boxing circles for over the last year and some change now. Kalia 5 has a title. Kalia 5 wants that fight. That's a fight that I think, Roman Gonzalez was coming off the heels of a sensational knockout of Moises Fuentes. I would make that. If I were Gonzalez and if I'm looking to have a title fight right away, I would sign with her, one fight deal, and get that Kalia 5 fight. Because right now would be a great time. People want to see that fight would sell in the UK as the fight has a bit of a fan base there. Gonzalez is a name. People know who he is. People in the UK respect their boxing. They know their boxing. So if a guy like Roman Gonzalez goes and fights there, he'll be able to put some butts in the seats. He's very entertaining. I've seen him fight in person. There's really very few things I've seen in person, sporting wise, more exciting than the Roman Gonzalez fight. So I think that would really go well for him. So yeah, those guys that are directly affected by HBO Living Boxing. I think to me those 4 names, or 3 names I should say, are the ones that came to mind immediately: Gonzalez, Canelo, Golovkin. That's what I think they should all do. With that being said, wanted to get into HBO and Peter Nelson. Peter Nelson made some interesting comments here, and he said this is on Boxing Scene, and this is what he said. He said that HBO decline in ratings was not a factor that in them getting rid of boxing from the network. And I find that very interesting. But here's what Peter Nelson said in regards to like HBO's declining ratings not being a factor to them leaving the sport of boxing. Here's what it says. It says, I quote, "This decision has been a shift, not a result of where we stand in other places in boxing, but directionally where we feel the direction is in HBO sports. We had the fight of the year, the #1 pay-per-view event, 8 of the top 10 highest rated premium cable fights. You could say our vibrancy in the sport is as strong as ever. We're proud of our legacy in boxing. The sport is in a better place because of HBO's presence in it. We have a tremendous heritage to point to in regard to the roadmap we provided on how to humanize these fighters and their communities. That aspect of storytelling is one we look to continue. There is more ample opportunity for fighters across different platforms than ever before. As a fan of the sport, I think that's great." So Peter Nelson said this. Here's what Peter Nelson, to break that down in layman's terms, what Peter Nelson is essentially saying is that the reason Living Boxing isn't because of the ratings. It's just, they have a different, all of a sudden, they have a different philosophy in the network. And he's using, the one-off fight with Canelo Golovkin that would have been big on any network as an example, and a couple, other high-rated fights they had as a ways to justify their direction or their place in boxing at the moment. And to that, I would say this. I'd say Peter Nelson. For one, I think in this fast-paced, microwave consuming society we live in these days, you have to. It is like imperative that when it comes to TV programming, that you're providing your especially if you're a closed circuit TV provider. So if you're like HBO, we got to pay a monthly subscription. You got to be providing top-notch content, and I think that's where HBO's failed. Their 24/7s have gotten tried and tiring. They haven't really evolved that as the years have went on since Floyd's left. The level of the number of high-level fights they've been putting on has not been very high. Even though the ratings haven't been really good for the network, I do like what they did with the Superfly cards. So I'll give them credit for that. They did. HBO did make a bid to sign Anthony Joshua. That didn't work out. So the fact of the matter is, it's not a matter of HBO having a different philosophy or anything like that. It's really more of a matter of you just don't have enough quality fighters and fights to put on. You don't. You realize that. That's why you're getting the hell out the sport. So all this stuff that you're saying, a lot of those fighters that you're going to use as a lot of those fights that you're using as a means to justify where you're at in boxing, that's not even like those fighters. That's not relevant anymore because you're leaving the sport. So that being said, they made attempts to sign Anthony Joshua. He's even alluded to recently in our articles that he would even try to host a Wilder Joshua fight if the opportunity ever made itself available. But let's call a spade a spade. Your ratings have declined. You've tried some things. I give Peter Nelson some credit. He tried some things. He tried the super flyweight thing. I wasn't against that, but and numbers and money speaks. The numbers weren't great because you scheduled that fight on the same night that Canelo Golovkin was going on. That's why it was so low. I think on a night where there wasn't a fight of that magnitude on, because to be honest with you, I love the flyweights. I didn't even watch the Juan Francisco Estrada fight, and I love Estrada because I wanted to watch Canelo Golovkin, and you can't put the super flyweight cards in to compete with that fight because it's not going to win. You got to know that. You got to know in advance that you can't do that, and that's where he's done things like that time and time again. So that being said, man, it is what it is, man. Peter Nelson has successfully ran HBO into the ground, and this is my last video on this subject. It's just sad. It really is sad. But when one door closes, as I've learned in my own personal life, when one door closes, another one opens. You give things time, and things get better in one way or the other. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Just give my thoughts on how the move affects some of HBO's marquee fighters, such as Triple G, Canelo, Roman, Chocolatito Gonzalez. I think Roman and Triple G should go sign with Eddie Hearn. I think Canelo should either try to I think Canelo and Golden Boy should try to finesse ESPN and get him some fights on ESPN, regular ESPN, no ESPN Plus. Or they just throw their own pay-per-view cards themselves and do it that way. And if not that, and aside from that, I think Peter Nelson understood that there wasn't enough high-quality fighters that were there to offer the HBO subscribers programming. So he did what he thought was best, and what was the best of ultimately, which was to pull the plug. And it's sad, but it had to be done. And the sad reality is HBO is no longer a player in the sport of boxing. Sad to say it, but it's true. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single video, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys.